In a land far away, surrounded by towering mountains and ancient trees, lived a curious young boy named Oliver. He had always been fascinated by the tales of magic and adventure that his grandmother would tell him at bedtime. One crisp autumn day, Oliver decided to venture into the deep, uncharted forest that bordered his village, hoping to discover some hidden wonders of his own. As he walked through the forest, the light from the setting sun filtered through the thick canopy of leaves, casting a golden hue on everything around him. The air was filled with the scent of pine and earth, and the only sounds were the rustling of leaves and the occasional call of a distant bird. The deeper Oliver went, the more the forest seemed to close in around him, as if it were alive and watching his every move. After hours of wandering, just as the sky began to darken, Oliver's foot struck something hard. Looking down, he saw a large, leather-bound book lying partially buried beneath a pile of fallen leaves. The cover was worn, with strange symbols etched into the leather that seemed to glow faintly in the dim light. Curious, Oliver brushed off the leaves and picked up the book. It was heavier than he expected, and the pages were thick and yellowed with age. Unable to resist the urge to see what secrets the book held, Oliver carefully opened it. The moment he did, a blinding light erupted from the pages, illuminating the entire forest. The light wrapped around Oliver like a warm embrace, and before he could react, he felt himself being pulled into the book. When the light faded, Oliver found himself standing in a world unlike any he had ever seen. The sky was a deep, shimmering violet, dotted with stars that twinkled like diamonds. The trees were tall and twisted, with leaves that glowed softly in the darkness. Strange, colorful plants and flowers lined the path beneath his feet, and the air was filled with the sound of distant music, as if the very world was alive with magic. As Oliver stood in awe, trying to take in his surroundings, he heard a soft rustling behind him. Turning around, he saw a small, white rabbit standing on its hind legs. But this was no ordinary rabbit. Its fur shimmered like moonlight, and its eyes sparkled with intelligence. The rabbit bowed slightly and spoke in a voice that was both gentle and wise. "Welcome, young traveler, to the world of wonders," the rabbit said. "My name is Lumos, and I have been waiting for you." Oliver blinked in surprise. You can talk?" he stammered. Lumos chuckled. "Indeed, I can, and there is much more to this world than you can imagine. But first, you must learn the ways of magic if you are to survive here." Over the following days, Lumos guided Oliver through the enchanting landscapes of the world of wonders. They visited towering castles made of crystal, forests where the trees sang songs of old, and rivers that flowed with liquid light. Everywhere they went, Lumos taught Oliver the secrets of magic. The days in the world of wonders were unlike anything Oliver had ever experienced. Time moved differently here, sometimes stretching into long, peaceful moments, and other times racing ahead in the blink of an eye. With Lumos by his side, Oliver had mastered many forms of magic. Yet, despite the beauty and wonder of this realm, a sense of unease began to settle in his heart. The shadows seemed darker, and the nights grew longer. Lumos had warned him of the dangers that lurked within the world, and it wasn't long before those dangers began to reveal themselves. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the land, Lumos led Oliver to the edge of a vast, dark forest. The trees here were different, gnarled and twisted, with branches like skeletal hands reaching out to snatch at the unwary. The air was thick with mist, and the silence was so profound that it pressed on Oliver's ears. "This is the forest of the abyss," Lumos said quietly. "It is a place of great danger, where the dark forces of this world gather their strength. We must be cautious, for the creatures that dwell here are not like those we have encountered before." Oliver nodded, gripping his staff tightly. He could feel the magic pulsing within him, ready to be called upon if needed. Together, they ventured into the forest, the path ahead barely visible through the thick fog. As they walked, the trees seemed to close in around them, their branches creaking ominously. Strange whispers floated on the air, words in a language Oliver could not understand. The ground beneath his feet was soft and uneven, as if the earth itself was shifting and alive. After what felt like hours of walking, they reached a clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a massive, ancient tree, its bark blackened and scarred. The tree's roots twisted and coiled like serpents, and its branches reached high into the sky, disappearing into the darkness above. At the base of the tree was a large, stone door, covered in runes that glowed faintly in the dim light. "This is the Gate of Shadows," Lumos whispered. "Beyond this door lies the Abyss, a place of unimaginable darkness. It is here that the Shadow King resides, the source of the dark magic that threatens this world." Oliver felt a chill run down his spine. The name Shadow King sent a shiver of fear through him. He had heard Lumos speak of this entity before, a being of pure malevolence who sought to corrupt the world of wonders and bend it to his will. "We must enter the Abyss," Lumos continued, his voice filled with resolve. "The Shadow King is growing stronger, and if we do not stop him, he will consume this world and everything in it." Taking a deep breath, Oliver stepped forward. As his hand touched the cold stone of the door, the runes flared to life, casting a pale blue light that illuminated the clearing. Slowly, the door began to open, revealing a dark tunnel that descended into the earth. With Lumos at his side, Oliver entered the tunnel. The walls were lined with ancient carvings, depicting scenes of battles between light and darkness. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and the only sound was the echo of their footsteps. As they descended deeper into the abyss, the darkness grew thicker, pressing in on all sides. The tunnel twisted and turned, leading them deeper into the heart of the earth. Strange, ghostly figures flickered at the edges of Oliver's vision, disappearing whenever he tried to focus on them. Finally, they emerged into a vast cavern, the ceiling lost in the shadows above. In the center of the cavern was a massive, black throne, carved from a single piece of obsidian. Sitting upon the throne was a figure cloaked in darkness, his eyes glowing with a sinister red light. The Shadow King. Oliver felt a wave of fear wash over him, but he forced himself to stand tall. The journey back to the surface was not as peaceful as Oliver had hoped. As he and Lumos ascended through the labyrinthine tunnels, the walls seemed to whisper with voices, remnants of the darkness they had just vanquished. The soft golden light that now bathed the passageway was warm, but it couldn't chase away the lingering sense of foreboding that clung to Oliver's heart. The Shadow King may have been defeated, but his presence still felt disturbingly near. When they finally emerged from the tunnel, they found themselves not in the misty forest they had entered, but in a place neither had seen before. The sky above was a deep, unnerving purple, streaked with crimson clouds that twisted and churned as if alive. The air was thick with an acrid scent, a mix of burnt wood and sulfur, and the ground beneath their feet was cracked and scorched. The peaceful world of wonders they had known was gone, replaced by a landscape twisted and broken by dark forces. This shouldn't be," Lumos muttered, his voice filled with shock. "The land is tainted, as if the abyss has reached the surface." Oliver looked around, trying to grasp what had happened. The once vibrant and lush world was now a shadow of its former self. The trees, once tall and green, were now withered husks. Rivers that had once flowed with crystal-clear water now ran black, and the once vibrant flowers were replaced with twisted, thorny vines. "What happened while we were down there?" Oliver asked, fear gripping his heart. "The Shadow King was merely a puppet," Lumos replied, his voice grim. "Something far more ancient and powerful is at work here. The abyss is a part of this world, yes, but it should not be able to consume it in such a way." There are forces at play that we do not yet understand. As they walked through the ruined landscape, the silence was oppressive. The only sounds were the occasional distant rumble of thunder and the crackling of fire in the distance. The air was heavy with the scent of decay, and it seemed as though the land itself was dying. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the sky. A bolt of red lightning struck the ground not far from where they stood. The earth trembled, and a deep fissure opened, spewing forth a thick, black smoke that filled the air with the stench of sulfur. From the smoke emerged a figure, tall and imposing, clad in armor that seemed to be forged from the very shadows. His eyes glowed with a fiery red light, and his presence radiated a palpable aura of malevolence. "Who dares to defy the will of the Forgotten?" the figure boomed. Lumos stepped forward, his fur bristling with energy. "We do not seek to defy," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We seek to understand. Who are you, and what has happened to this world?" The figure laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "I am the harbinger of the Forgotten, the one who brings their wrath upon this world. The Shadow King was but a servant, a pawn in their grand design. Now that he is gone, the Forgotten have awakened, and their vengeance will be swift and terrible." Oliver felt a cold dread settle over him. The Forgotten. The name alone filled him with a sense of ancient terror. He had heard stories of them, whispered by the elders of his village, tales of beings older than time itself. Entities that existed in the shadows between worlds, waiting for the moment when they could return and reclaim what was theirs. "What do the Forgotten want?" Oliver asked, trying to keep the fear from his voice. The Harbinger turned his glowing eyes on Oliver. The Sentinel's power was unlike anything Oliver had ever encountered. Its attacks were relentless, and the air around them grew colder with every passing second. The darkness it radiated felt suffocating, a tangible force that sought to crush their spirits and extinguish their hope. Every time Oliver tried to push back with his magic, the Sentinel absorbed the light, twisting it into something dark and malevolent. Lumos fought valiantly by Oliver's side, his small form darting around the battlefield, casting spells that crackled with energy. But even the mighty rabbit seemed to be struggling against the overwhelming power of the Sentinel. Every time Lumos managed to land a hit, the creature would reform, its shadowy body shifting and reshaping itself as if the attack had been nothing more than a minor inconvenience. "We can't keep this up," Oliver panted, his energy waning. The Sentinel seemed to be drawing power directly from the Nexus, growing stronger with every moment. "There has to be another way." "There is," Lumos said, his voice strained but determined. "The Sentinel is bound to the Nexus, drawing power from it. If we can sever that connection, we can weaken it. But to do that, we'll need to use the ancient magic of this world, the same magic that the Forgotten once wielded." Oliver hesitated. The magic of the Forgotten was powerful, but it was also dangerous. He had seen what it could do, how it could corrupt and twist even the purest of intentions. But he also knew that they had no choice. The fate of the world of wonders hung in the balance. "I'll do it," Oliver said, his resolve firm. "But how do we use it?" Lumos looked at Oliver, his eyes filled with a mixture of hope and worry. "The magic of the Forgotten is ancient, but it's not inherently evil. It's a force of nature, a balance between light and darkness. To use it, you must open your heart to both sides of the magic and become the conduit for that balance. It's risky, but it's the only way." Oliver nodded, his grip tightening on his staff. "I'm ready." With a deep breath, Oliver closed his eyes and reached out with his mind. He could feel it, a powerful current that surged beneath the surface of the world, waiting to be called upon. It was both beautiful and terrifying, a force that could create and destroy with equal ease. Slowly, Oliver began to channel the magic, allowing it to flow through him. At first, it was overwhelming, the sheer intensity of it threatening to consume him. But he focused on the teachings of Lumos, grounding himself in the light that had guided him throughout his journey. He balanced the darkness with the light, finding the harmony between the two. The air around him crackled with energy, and the ground beneath his feet began to glow with a soft, golden light. The sentinel, sensing the shift in power, let out a roar of fury and lunged at Oliver, its form twisting into a mass of shadowy tendrils. But Oliver stood his ground, the light around him intensifying. As the sentinel's tendrils reached him, they were met with a burst of golden light. The shadows recoiled, and for the first time, the sentinel faltered. Oliver could feel the connection between the creature and the nexus weakening. He pressed forward, pouring more of the ancient magic into the spell. The sentinel howled in rage, its form flickering as the light tore through its dark essence. Oliver could feel the strain, the magic pushing him to his limits, but he refused to give in. With a final surge of power, Oliver unleashed the full force of the ancient magic. The golden light erupted from his staff, forming a brilliant beam that struck the nexus. The sentinel let out a deafening scream as the connection was severed, its form dissolving into a cloud of black smoke. The nexus shuddered, its dark energy dissipating as the ancient magic purified it. The swirling vortex of darkness and light began to stabilize, the chaotic energy calming into a gentle, radiant glow. The runes on the ground pulsed with the same golden light, and the air grew warm and serene. Oliver collapsed to his knees, exhausted but triumphant. The sentinel was gone, and the nexus was no longer a source of darkness. Instead, it had become a beacon of light, a symbol of the balance that now existed between the forces of light and dark.